Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and there are two primary things that I'm going to run through in this video that I think you'll find very interesting. The first comes from dailyhodl.com, and this piece is titled, Busted, YouTuber Embroiled in Bitcoin Plot Leaves $100,000 Blockchain Trail. And this most certainly caught my attention because it involves a Ripple on-demand liquidity partner, which of course on-demand liquidity utilizes XRP as a bridge currency, and so it's involving Bitso. And I tell you, out of the 6 publicly announced on-demand liquidity partners that are exchange partners, I think Bitso certainly the most utilized in terms of on-demand liquidity flows, probably the most well-known. And so they were cited in this, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. How about that? And I hadn't seen, to this point anyway, maybe somebody else covered this. I hadn't noticed anyone today anyway cover this story, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to point this out. To me, this is pretty darn interesting. I've also got a thread on Twitter, which is an excellent opportunity to engage in critical thinking. It comes from somebody who is just absolutely, from my perspective, just seems to be somebody looking for the truth as far as why does it make sense to utilize XRP? Why would it even have an open market value that could potentially increase? And I'm paraphrasing here, but it was a thread of, I don't know, maybe 7 or so tweets, and I sort of want to break it down and share with you my thoughts on this. This is the type of thing that I love covering on this channel, and this individual ended up tagging me along with some others here, so definitely completely valid questions, and again, I want to run through it with you. But before we go any further, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel. So into the first piece now. And check this out, because I'll tell you what, as my grandpapa used to say, people are no damn good. And tell you what, somebody went to jail for a long freaking time. This is just astonishing. Especially, this is a really young guy here, so check this out. Authorities in Mexico say a 25-year-old YouTuber is the ringleader of a band of kidnappers who extorted $103,000 in Bitcoin in exchange for the release of their victim. German Abraham Loera Acosta is heading to prison for being one of 6 people involved in the kidnapping of lawyer Thania Denise in Chihuahua, Mexico in February of 2018. According to a report by Milenio, Acosta snatched the victim, shoved her into a car, and rented a house where he and his accomplices held the woman hostage. They quickly contacted authorities over the internet to demand $103,000 ransom in Bitcoin. So you might be saying, how come 103? Why not 100? Well, that's because the ransom was demanded in pesos, it came out to an even 2 million pesos. And so when you convert it, it just happens to come out to 103,000 United States dollars. So there you go. Somebody out there was wondering that. There's your answer. After receiving the ransom, Acosta reached out to the Mexican cryptocurrency exchange Bitso via Twitter, where he could have potentially sold the Bitcoin for cash. Acosta boasted about an alleged Bitcoin gambling business, stating, quote, "I'd like to speak to you. We are the heads of marketing for the biggest Bitcoin casinos in the world." Now, so what did Bitso do? What do you think they did here? They didn't respond. They did not respond. 2 days after the kidnapping, and once the ransom was fully paid, authorities rescued a 33-year-old Denise, if I'm saying that right. They spelled it here Dinisse. So, unless that was a typo. Did I not notice that above? I don't see it. Well, regardless, whatever's crypto media, even if it's a typo, whatever, but maybe that's just how it's supposed to be spelled. Now, Cesar Peniche, Chihuahua District Attorney, man, I'm sure I'm butchering these names. It's fun. It's just something I do on this channel. So the District Attorney here described Acosta as, quote, "a very experienced person in internet communication." Now, despite his tech savvy, Chihuahuan authorities say they were able to trace the Bitcoin on the network's blockchain, an immutable ledger of transactions, and fully recover the ransom. They also reportedly seized 3 vehicles, a handgun, and the mobile phones used in the extortion plot. Acosta has a YouTube channel as a motivational speaker, isn't that something, and marketing guru with 2-year-old videos, over 4,500 subscribers, and over 400,000 views. And so the tagline of his channel reads, quote, and this is a translation, of course, but I think the only limitation we have is our mind. I write, think, and undertake. And so check this out. The influencer has been sentenced to 50 years in prison. Yes, 50 years in prison. In addition, the group will have to pay a $25,730 fine. So don't be a bad person. Just maybe don't do that. And it's just, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of ways to make money on this planet. And it does not make sense to spend your time and effort doing nefarious things. Just start a business, just do whatever. Start a hobby. Find a way to turn a passion into real money here. But here's this jackass doing this. And so now he's going to spend functionally the rest of his life in prison right there. Bitso didn't fall for it, though. Yay, RippleNet partner. So I'm glad that they are. Can you imagine the headlines? What do you think a website like Bitcoinist or News BTC would have had to say about this? Ripple partner engaged in some sort of blah, blah, blah. Who knows how they would have twisted this? Wouldn't have been a positive headline. I certainly don't suspect here. But interesting story nonetheless. Man, can you imagine 25 years old and spending the next 50 years in prison? What a mistake here. And it's somebody that just seemed on the surface to be such a regular person. Outside of this anyway, but I guess that's just how it goes sometimes. All right, let's jump into the next piece here now. And this comes from Chart Entropy, ChartEntropy, on the Twitters here. And he ultimately again tagged me along with a few others here. And so here's how the Twitter thread reads. Serious question regarding the future price of XRP. Why would XRP price need to go up? Brad Garlinghouse says they want to unlock this mystical dormant money wasting away in Nostra Vostra accounts, which would provide banks with access to more funds which are constantly tied up. Okay, first of all, I want to be clear here, and yes, we do talk about the elimination or substantial reduction, more accurately, of Nostra Vostra accounts the world over. Understand that it's the largest banks on the entire planet that hold the strong majority of Nostra Vostra accounts. Most banks engaging in remittance transactions around the world, specifically pertaining to the settlement of these transactions, do not have any Nostro accounts. Maybe they have one or two or three or whatever, but most of them just don't have any because they don't have the capital to have tied up the world over. It's the largest banks in the world. And so why are the largest banks in the world willing to have dormant capital the world over? Answer's not that complex. It's because they make money from their smaller competitors who do pay to tap into that dormant capital. It's just liquidity that's tied up. Technically, I'd say it's fair to describe it as that. Nostra Vostra accounts dormant capital, but it's liquid though. It is pretty liquid, and so again, the smaller banks are paying their larger companies to go ahead and tap into that, and that's also part of why the larger banks are going to be the banks, I believe, and I think we've seen this play out, that are least likely to adopt on-demand liquidity first. Now, of course, once the source of income that they're earning from the smaller competitors, once that begins to dry up, there will be less of an incentive to have these Nostro accounts the world over, and then you might just see some of them jump on board because, well, I mean, if there's enough liquidity in XRP the world over, maybe it doesn't make sense to have all of these Nostro accounts. Not necessarily, so that's a direction it could have. Or that it could go, rather. And then his tweet continued. Here's the next tweet. Due to inefficient cross-border payments. Let me read that whole sentence here again really quick. Brad Garlinghouse says they want to unlock this mystical dormant money wasting away in Nostra Vostra accounts, which would provide banks with access to more funds which are constantly tied up due to inefficient cross-border payments. Okay. Well, I see a lot of people basing their price predictions of XRP as if it will one-for-one replace the dollars in those accounts. So one XRP replaces $1 that is tied up. Well, the problem is that's not freeing anything up. You are purchasing one asset for another. So bank would not be unlocking anything. This argument is also supported by the people who do the math. 100 billion XRP total 27 trillion in Nostra Vostra accounts. That means each XRP is worth $270. Well, yeah, on paper, but question is, why would a bank choose to do this at a one-to-one exchange? It wouldn't. And this is a very fair question, and I remember my early days in the world of crypto, my early days in the XRP community, asking this very same question, just seeking a legitimate answer here. And so I absolutely can appreciate the fact that this question is being asked. This is an individual looking for the truth here. And so the truth is, it's not the case that all of the dormant capital that's tied up in Nostro accounts is going to flow in the XRP, but it doesn't have to. Here's the cool thing about this. Conceptually, understand this. There are people speculating on the price of XRP, and that is resulting in XRP having notable liquidity. Now, it's still not sufficiently liquid to replace Nostro accounts the world over, but we're in early days here. Corridors are getting built out, all that good stuff here. But absolutely, the speculation is occurring. Now, that is what makes these transfers possible. So it's not the case that banks need to move their dormant capital from these bank accounts into XRP. That's not what's being proposed here. What we're talking about is the fact that the speculation is occurring anyway, and all we're talking about is tapping into that. Since it's already occurring anyway, well, these flows, why not just utilize that for the purpose of moving money around the planet? And so that's what we're talking about here, and utilizing XRP as a bridge currency. That's the first part of the answer. Now, there is substantially more to this, and this video is not intended to be an exhaustive answer on this, but that's a pretty reasonable starting point. And you can jump into this, and I'll be very brief with this because I have covered this on the channel, and I brought up some of these points recently, but this is just fudbingo.com with fear, uncertainty, doubt, FUD. And then here's an answer to some FUD here. Price won't rise because XRP is too fast. And one of my other favorite answers to this is that if you're talking about how much XRP is needed, understand also that the vast majority of XRP that's available is not, or that's in existence, maybe that's better way to word it, is not available for sale on exchange. Most of it is just being held. And so it's just a fraction of that. And there are other reasons, too. Here's another reason. This FUD assumes no active trading or speculation. This FUD assumes no institution will hold XRP. This FUD assumes no existence of market makers. And so you have to understand that also, in terms of these liquidity pools, it's not just the individuals that are buying and selling, making the whole concept of on-demand liquidity possible. When you're talking about huge exchanges, which are the liquidity pools here that we're talking about, they hold massive reserves of XRP. And so as this is built out, that takes out what is immediately available, because it has to always be held somewhere. Even if it's moving, it has to be held by someone, and that notably increases, or affects rather, the supply and demand. This is notable here. And then he continues here. So where did I jump off here? That means, yeah, here we go. Let me just start here. Yeah, so he wrote, now, this is a little bit overlap, but just let me jump in. You're purchasing one asset for another, so a bank would not be unlocking anything. This argument is also supported by the people who do the math. 100 billion XRP total, 27 trillion in Nostra Vostra accounts. That means each XRP is worth $270. Well, yeah, on paper, but question is, why would a bank choose to do this at a one-to-one exchange? It wouldn't. Well, yeah, a bank isn't intended to hold XRP, and maybe there will be some of that down the road. I don't know that that's something that's going to be commonplace necessarily. Maybe. I'm not counting on it, and it's not necessary for this all to work out here. Instead, as I cited earlier, it will be, excuse me, it will be remittance companies and banks that are able to tap into the existing liquidity on exchanges, and that way they don't have to pay their larger competitor banks to tap into liquidity. It's much less expensive and much more efficient to tap into existing liquidity that already exists on cryptocurrency exchanges, the vast majority of which is just happening anyway. All right, so awesome question here. Let me continue on. He's got a little bit more to say. It would possibly do it for pennies on the dollar. So he's talking about banks tapping into XRP here. Maybe. So I don't see the do the math argument making much sense. The next question is the speed of the asset. Let's say there are $1.5 quadrillion of value in play for XRP to service. Again, unless it's a one-to-one exchange, then you don't need 1.5 quadrillion worth of XRP, because 1.5 quadrillion is not being transacted at any given time around the world. If an XRP transfer takes, let's say, 10 seconds, then you only need 10 seconds maximum value transfer worth of XRP in the market at any time. Does anyone know the maximum amount of money ever transacted in a 10-second period in the history of electronic money transfer? Well, it seems to me, if you want to know the true value of an XRP, then you should find out what that 10-second transaction number is and divide it by 100 billion. And look, you're not the first one to think along those lines. Tons of people, when trying to get to the truth, have gone down that route, but that doesn't take into account all of the reasons that XRP is being held. In addition to that, it doesn't take into account other use cases, in which case, that's going to affect supply and demand as well. But you have to look at what's happening in the ecosystem today. I'm an example. I'm just one little tiny piece of this. I am choosing to hold XRP. It is not available. And there are a ton of other people that are doing that as well. And so again, factor that in. My XRP is not available on exchanges, and it's not going to be for a very long time. That's my guess. I'm not going to sell anytime soon, I don't suppose. We'll see when the parabolic XRP moves up in price, but I don't suppose it's going to happen anytime sooner. So again, the path you went down, chart entropy, makes a ton of sense. I get it when you're learning, but I can assure you that it's deeper than that. Okay, Sunny writes, hell, future proof of it multiplying by 10 or even 100. My suspicion is it isn't that big of a number. Can anyone provide a logical, fundamental argument for greater than $50 XRP, or point me to a resource that breaks it down for me? Because all I see on the subject are hopes and dreams of 2017 bag holders. Yeah, and I don't know that you can necessarily break down exactly what this is going to look like, but even when you factor in I've just happened to have mentioned this a little bit in my last video, but don't discount the degree to which institutional investors jumping into this crypto asset class en masse will affect the price of every cryptocurrency that will have staying power. And I think XRP would be among them, though. When you're talking about even just fractions of a % of total assets of institutional investors holding cryptocurrencies like XRP, my gosh. What's that going to do to supply and demand? What's that going to do to a speculator confidence? And then once you also understand, this is a concept I just can't get into for this video to go way too long, but just the concept of the net inflow of actual money needed to flow in to make the price of any crypto asset jump up substantially, it's way lower than what that dollar figure is. And so there's a ton of answers. And again, I didn't intend for this to be exhaustive, but I hope that can get you thinking down the path and understanding why it's not a problem. Like, it's, again, you're thinking critically, and I so appreciate that. But the good news is, and this is my answer after doing my own analysis a couple years ago, because I had the same concern, and it's a great thing to think about, especially when you're jumping into the XRP community. It is not a problem. Once you understand the whole landscape, it is not remotely a problem. It's not something that's going to keep XRP price low forever. And if you just look at the history of how the value, let's not say value is different than price. Let's say how the price has appreciated in XRP over the better part of the last decade. That's already evidence of what I am talking about. It's already playing out in real time for almost a full decade. So just consider that. But anyway, that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!